Welcome to a new video in my home automation series, and today I want to show you this Reolink NVR, which is an 8-channel IP camera recording system. And normally when you look for a home security system or surveillance system, usually buy a kit. I mean, I guess most people would do, which contains a recorder and then it contains a couple of cameras. But I did it exactly the other way around, because in the last couple of years I have reviewed countless different Reolink cameras. Some of them were PoE cameras, so wired cameras. I have a lot of Wi-Fi cameras as well. I also have battery operated cameras, and they have been all recorded individually into the SD cards, which is inserted into each of those cameras. And now I wanted to have a central recording. So I have this NVR that I received from Reolink. And so I'm going to set this up. And I thought it's going to be a really long and complicated video, but actually, as you're going to see it in the process, it was really quick and easy, because you literally go through the initial setup of the NVR, which is like 5 or 6 different steps. It's like a Windows setup. It asks you like, okay, what is your location, your date format, and that sort of stuff, and the IP address. So and once you do that, then because all my cameras are Reolink, it was just able to identify all the cameras and add them to the recorder. So again, it was really easy. So all I was really doing is I was rewiring some of the wired cameras. So instead of them going to my switch, they go directly to the NVR. And there were a number of reasons I did that. Firstly, because this recorder has a PoE function, so it can provide a power to the cameras over the Ethernet cable. And previously, I didn't have any PoE in my home network setup. So what I was doing for these cameras, I ran a separate 2-wire power lines to power them from 12 volts. So now I've disconnected that power and I only just plugged in the cable to the rear of the recorder. So that provides networking, and also it provides the power for these cameras. And the second reason for that, because now the data from those cameras are traveling between the camera and the NVR directly, so those cameras are no longer visible on my home network, which means that the traffic on my home network is not increased by the constant recording of all the cameras, which again, it's going to reduce the amount of traffic that I have on my my regular network, which well, it's definitely below the threshold, but I guess it's better. So anything that you connect to the NVR is going to be on a separate subnet, which is not a problem, because I can still access all those cameras using the NVR. And but this is what I wanted. But on the other hand, all the cameras that are Wi-Fi cameras, they would still be able to be accessed by the NVR and then create the recordings of those Wi-Fi cameras without any issues. So it's sort of like a win-win. If you have access to cables, and if you can cable a camera, you should definitely use the the PoE and the cable connection. But if you have such a location that you won't be able to cable with using a network cable, you can only use Wi-Fi, the NVR will still be able to recognize that and create a recording of those cameras as well. So at the moment I have 3 of these cameras. I think it is starting to be a little bit too much for my Wi-Fi network, because I have so many devices and now these 3 cameras are recording continuously. So I might be disabling the recording on some of them. I just need to play around. But of course, the situation could be completely different in your location. I'm using a fairly simple Wi-Fi router that I received from my ISP. If you have something like a proper brand or a beefier one, which is a more expensive one, which is designed to handle a lot of devices, you might not have this issue at all. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to have a quick review how this NVR looks like when you are buying it separate. I would go through very quickly of the setup process. As I said, it's fairly easy. It doesn't require a lot of explanation. And then I'm going to show you how the whole thing looks like. And for that, I'm going to use the mobile application. I'm also going to use the the web interface of the NVR itself. And quickly, I'm also going to show you the Windows application as well. It gets a little bit difficult to fit everything into the view here, but I brought out the most important things that you will find in the box if you buy the NVR. Well, first of all, you get the NVR itself. And it's I would say a surprisingly small box, and it's very lightweight as well. So this is how it looks like. And well, that's the main show in the box. And of course, it comes with a power supply, a fairly beefy power supply. And well, that probably makes it light as well because the power supply is outside. And it's a fairly big power supply because, yeah, keep in mind that it's not only powering the NVR itself, but it's providing power over Ethernet for the cameras. So that 90 watt power supply is capable of powering 8 cameras plus the NVR as well. And there are a few other bits and pieces which I haven't even brought here. So you get also a small USB mouse with it. You get an HDMI cable, and also you get a short network cable to connect it to the network. But yeah, and the power supply itself, let me show you the power supply. So it comes with a short cable, which is an EIC cable, and the other end is, well, for me it's a European plug, but there was also, I think, a UK plug in the box. If you buy in the US, most probably you will get a US one. And the other side of the power supply is the 24 volt cable or the output. So this is longer, so you can place this power supply further away from the NVR, and it just terminates in this laptop style power plug or the DC plug. So that's the power supply as well. And then you get this box, which it is designed to be freestanding, so I don't see any sort of rack mount on the side, and so I think I'm just going to place it on a shelf. And on the front you see that there is a Reolink logo, there is a infrared input, although I didn't receive any remote for it. I mean, this looks like an infrared one. There's a USB infrared. There are two LEDs, one is power, the other one is HDD, so when the hard drive is working, recording, you have a play, pause, all, menu, select, and the 4 menu items. Because just like with, you know, how it usually works with the NVRs, you can, well, we are going to see in the back, you can connect a screen to it and the mouse, and you can just control it locally. Or, of course, you can do it via app or the web application as well. So if you want to make changes here, then you can use these buttons or the mouse, and then just view the output on the screen. And the screens would be connected here. So what we see on the back is that's where the power goes. You have a physical on-off button, and you have a couple of outputs. So you can connect an old VGA monitor, you can connect HDMI, so you can view the feed directly on, let's say, a TV. There is a second USB here. There is a separate audio out. There is an eSATA connection, so if you want to connect external hard drive, which I'm not going to do. And of course you have a LAN port. So that's the port that you connected to your local network, so you can access the NVR from the app or from any other device using the built-in browser or the Windows desktop app. There must be like a macOS desktop as well. And this NVR supports up to 8 cameras, so this is where you would connect the cameras. So this is just network connections, but these network connections also provide PoE power to all the devices. So that's why the 24 volt is going to just come out here and then power the cameras. So if you're using this, even if you don't have power over Ethernet, like I don't have power over Ethernet on my regular network, from this point or from these ports, the cameras would be able to receive power straight from this unit, so you don't need to power them separately. So what you need is a network cable. So what you're going to see next is when I set up the NVR for the first time, and I did the setup in my office and without connecting any cameras to the NVR. So I just wanted to go through the general setup process. So once everything is running, I can just put the NVR into this final place where it is a little bit more difficult to access. So I thought it's going to be easier. that way. And as I said, it's adding anything to the NVR is really easy because you know, as soon as you plug in something, plug in a camera to one of the 8 ports in the back, then it just recognizes those cameras and start recording. And also, once it scans the network, it will be able to find any other cameras, like my Wi-Fi cameras. So there is no issue of, you know, setting it up separately without connecting any cameras and then connecting the cameras later. It worked just fine. And in terms of the physical setup, all I have done is I obviously connected the power, I connected a network cable to the LAN port, I connected the external monitor, you can use either the HDMI output or you can use the VGA output, and I connected the mouse, and that's it. I also connected a keyboard, but it looks like that it's not really using the keyboard, so I still had the on-screen keyboard that I had to use with the mouse when I wanted to type in anything like names and passwords and that sort of stuff. So the whole setup process uses about like 7 steps, and it goes through this wizard type screen. And the first one is you set up basic things like language and the resolution of the local output, which is at the moment is set to 720p for me. And you set the date format and the time format. And the next screen, or the next step, you set up the time zone, and whether you want daylight saving time or not. And then on the third step, you set up your admin account, which is basically the name of the admin account, and then the password. So make sure that you remember that. And also right after that, there is a security question if you would need to reset the password. So once you have done these 2 steps, the next one is just going to be the device name, how the device is going to be called. I just specified NVR, that also how it shows up in your mobile app. And next you set up network information. I wanted this device to have a fixed IP address, so I selected a fixed IP address and I specified the IP address, the network mask, the gateway, and the the DNS entry. So standard IP4 setup, nothing really special. And finally, there was an email setup section. If you want the device to send you email notification, you can set up your email account right here. And I set up my Gmail account, so it is able to use Gmail with secure connection and the secure port. Well, otherwise it doesn't really work any other way with Gmail. And of course, if you have 2-factor authentication set up for Gmail, which you should have, then you need to generate an app password that you would enter here. So it's not going to be your main Gmail password. And once you have done that, it was up and running. And as I said, it would just scan the network and find all your cameras. And also in the final step, there was a screen which showed a QR code, and I scanned that QR code with the mobile application, and this is how I added the NVR to my account on the Reolink application on my phone. And of course, this QR code is also printed on the side of the case as well, but I just used the one on the screen. So what you can see here is how I was setting up the NVR in my, well, basically network cabinet. So I have this special place just above the fridge where all my network cable goes in, and that's where the fiber optic terminates from my ISP. So I have everything here, my servers and everything. And up until now, there was a separate 12-volt power supply which was supplying power to all the cameras. And first I just had to find and then disconnect all these connections, and I also had to check which cameras I disconnect because I didn't have all the cables labeled. So I was disconnecting all the 12-volt connection to the cameras, and I started plugging in the cameras to one of the 8 ports at the back of the NVR. And as soon as I did that, then the cameras started to appear in the feed. So I could see immediately the camera feeds. And I had fairly restricted place space in this location, and like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago when my kids were small, I bought these 7-inch screens that I used in a TV so they can watch TV in the back seat. And I'm not using that anymore, so I have these TVs laying around. So I use one of these TVs to set up here in the cabinet, so at least I can see the output. So this is the small 7-inch screen that you can see in the beginning of the video as well, and it has HDMI input, so I just connected the HDMI cable, and this is also powered from 12 volts, so I use the 12 volt power supply to power it. Actually, I find that it's really easy to have, or it's really handy to have this screen, because it's definitely much easier that if you want to troubleshoot something, that you just go there, you switch on the TV, the mouse is already connected, so you can just, you know, change settings and then quickly review the feed. You can look at all the cameras in one screen. So if you have a spare screen, I would recommend that you try to install that, and of course if you have the space for that. Basically that was it, because even in the initial process, the camera, or the NVR, was able to find all the Wi-Fi cameras, and once I plugged in all the network cameras, it was able to find them, and by default they started recording on all of these cameras immediately. So it was you know, it was working just fine. Once I did the wiring, it was basically set up. So all you need to do is, if you want you know, different recording schedules for some of the cameras, you can change that. By default, every Wi-Fi camera it finds, it starts recording 24/7, and all the network or the wired cameras that it finds, it will again start recording 24/7. And that was basically the setup process. So first, let me quickly show you the Windows version of this application. So as you can see, it, you know, sees all 5 of my cameras. So these are the 2 wired cameras and the 3 wireless cameras. And I also have a couple of battery cameras, which I obviously not getting recorded by the NVR, because none of the battery cameras are, you know, transmitting live feed 24/7. So the first thing that I did is, you can come here and then you can do add device, and you can switch by register by UID, UID, and then you will find the UID on the it's on the sticker on the box, and also you have to provide the user ID and the password. So once you add that, then you can see all the feeds or the cameras that are on the NVR as well. And to be honest, the reason I would use this application, because I think it is much easier to go through the setup, because you can just click here on the setup, and then you have access to all the different setup options, and you can access all this information on the phone app as well. But I think it's just probably easier to use it on the Windows app or the local website, and I mean, it works the same way. And of course, you have access to the playback, and then, you know, you can select which channel you want to review, and yep, it's here. And again, you can see that it's been running for a couple of days, so I have recording, and I can just you know, click on any of the location and then play, and then it will start playing back at that timestamp. Probably the download function is the easiest to use here. So again, if you want to download footage for any reason, I would probably use this desktop app as well. And you have the download button here, so you can just select the slices that you want to download, and then you can click on the download button. So this is what I usually use to download the footage. And next, I also want to mention the local app. So I configured, well, not the local app, but the local website the NVR gives you. To be honest, this has all the functions that you would normally need as well. So I mean, you can check both of them, and then you decide whether you want to use this primarily, or the Windows or the Mac OS app. But this works fine as well. As you can see, it sees all my cameras, and then I can switch between them, or I can pick a different view, which is going to show me, you know, multiple cameras. And so this is one of the Wi-Fi cameras. You know, it loads the feed without any issues. You can go to the street view, or sorry, the other camera which shows the street, and the playback works exactly the same as here as well. So you can pick a date, and then you can just you know, quickly go. So this web interface also loads really quickly. Again, you don't have to download anything. So I'm using this a lot as well if I want to quickly review a footage. Maybe to some extent it's even quicker than the application. And also you have tons of functions here. So you can set up all your recordings, and your settings. So for example, here you can see that I have the various cameras that are configured here. I can set up all the settings for the cameras, and under the surveillance you can also set up the recording. So the recording is enabled, and as you can see, for my street camera I didn't set up any of the timers because as I said previously, the timers don't really work very well for outdoor cameras because every single movement is getting triggered. But as you can see, under the timer I have everything enabled, so it will do recording 24/7. And if I would pick a different camera, so this is the driveway, and again this is recording 24/7, so there is a continuous recording, but I have also set up that I want all the alarms to be recorded as well, so vehicle and person. So you can choose whether you want to record all the footage 24/7, or you want to only record alarms. And again, if you have a camera which has the AI detection and then it sees either a person or a vehicle, then it's going to do the recording. So I think it's if you don't want to record 24/7, probably you should buy a camera which has this AI detection feature, and this camera also supports that. The only thing which I found a little bit strange is that I don't have the access to these in the local application. So what you can see here is that that's the driveway camera, and it has 24/7 recording set up, so you can just access any of the footage here, which works fine. But I don't see the AI detection events here on this screen. But in a couple of minutes, when I show you the mobile application, you will see the options there. So it is definitely available. It is recording all the motions and the events, but it's just not visible on the web UI screen or the local website. And this is how my Reolink mobile application looks like at the moment. So any of the cameras that are the battery operated cameras, for example my Argos or the Argos PT, are still accessible here, so they are visible as a separate camera, not part of the NVR, because the NVR or the recorder is not able to record the battery operated cameras. So I can just access them here. Oh, okay, it's failed. And you can see that I can still access the Wi-Fi cameras separately, so you can decide whether you want to remove them, because once you move down to the NVR, then within the NVR you see all the 8 slots in like separate channels. So for example, for me, the Wi-Fi cameras are now available at 2 times in my account, because I can see them through the NVR as well, and also directly because they are on Wi-Fi, so the phone is able to access them directly, not only through the NVR. So again, you can decide whether you want to keep both or not, but now I'm just using the NVR. And of course you can click on here and you can you have access to all the functions that you had access previously as well. So nothing has really changed. So it is really transparent in terms of whether you have an NVR and you're accessing your cameras through that, or you don't have and you are accessing it directly. So you still have access to all the different feeds, and then you can take photos and videos, and it just works great. The other thing I wanted to show you is I have this driveway camera, and this is the one which has the AI detection. So if I just load it and I go to playback, now you can see that I can turn on that. Let's say I'm only interested in detections when there was a car detected. And then you can see that's the morning my wife is leaving with the kids to the school. So it has detected that there was a movement and there was a car on the scene. And the other one is, couple of 10-15 minutes later when they returned. Or if I turn on the personal detection, most probably we can see that when they arrive, or when they, oh yeah, I was going to get the mail, I had a parcel delivered. So you can see it's working fine. You can really easily access all these AI features through the NVR as well. If you have these AI detection cameras, I just don't understand why is it not visible on all the other interfaces as well. But maybe that's something which is coming in a firmware update. And this is why I don't want to spend while explaining this a lot, because as I said, it is really transparent. It makes it really easy for somebody who have used Reolink cameras and the Reolink app before, and now if you are adding the NVR, it works almost exactly the same. And of course, as I said, you have all the settings here as well, and that you can access on the web application or the web interface. And you can see that you can set up you have all the settings for the various channels. So like, flipping the screen, changing the, adding the watermark, and that's, brightness and the other things. Privacy mask is available for all the channels separately. And actually there is one last thing that I wanted to talk about, and this was something which was really important for me. It might not be really important for you, but I still wanted to access the RTSP stream of these cameras that are connected to the NVR, and also the still images. I mean, not so much the RTSP stream. I mean, I just for fun, I have set it up on my NS Panel Pro, so I can view the, what's happening on the street and if anyone is coming, so I can view that on the NS Panel Pro as well. But I was more interested in the still image. So if I open the stream window, you can see that the URL is the user ID RTSP : user ID : password at the IP of the machine : 554, which is the RTSP stream, and /H264 preview, and then underscore, and in my case 01, which is the channel number, and underscore, and it could be either main or sub. So it is very similar how the URL is created if you have an individual camera. Obviously the difference here is that you can use the different channels. So obviously the first channel is 01, the second channel is 02, and then so on. So if I want to access my other cameras, which I think is 04, then that's the channel 4. I can just switch to channel 4, and then it's going to load the other camera. Oh no, maybe it's a different one. Oh, okay, it's here. I don't know why it took so much. There is one thing. As you can see, I'm using the sub channel, and it works fine. You can see the time is moving, so it's definitely like a live preview. But for some reason, if I want to change to the main feed, the high resolution feed, it still starts loading the feed. And as you can see, the counter is working, but I'm only getting the audio. There is no video at all. So you can see that there is no frames or no blocks. The audio is coming. I don't really know why it is happening. My cameras are definitely H.264 cameras, so I probably have to play around with it a little bit. But I didn't spend an awful lot of time because I don't really using these streams. I mean, if I really want to use it, I can probably just use the sub stream, and that's not a problem. But the other thing I was more interested in is the still image, because if you remember one of my earlier videos is I capture this image whenever somebody rings my doorbell, which is here. Actually, I have a doorbell here and also here. So whenever somebody rings that, I capture this image and I send it off to myself on Telegram. And that again still works if you have NVR. So you can see that the URL is the IP of the NVR, and then you have almost the exact same path what you would use for a separate camera. So CGI bin /API.CGI and question mark CMD equals snap, so a snap, and then n channel 0. So again, here you can use the channel numbers, and up until now when we had a single camera, that channel was always 0 because it's a single camera has only one channel. But if I change that to, let's say, 2 or 3 or 1, then I get the snapshot from a different channel. The only difference here is that the first channel is 0 and not 1. So you just have to remember to use, like on the RTSP stream, it was 0, 1, but here in the channel, it is actually 0. And then and rs equals, you just have to provide some random ID, and then user equals and your username, and password equals and your password, and you get the live image. So that's what I use to download this image, and I put it into a Telegram message. So I hope this gives you a really good overview of how a post installation of a Reolink NVR works in a setup where you already have cameras. The only other thing I didn't mention is once you start a central recording, probably you can visit all your cameras and remove the SD cards, because the local recording is not required anymore. You can keep it and you can use it as a backup option, but I think I'm going to collect some of my SD cameras and I'm going to use it for a different project. If you are interested in this NVR, I'm going to leave links in the video description below, but that will be all for today. Thanks for watching and hopefully see you next video.